everybody, and welcome to the Football Philosophy channel. This is a pre-recorded show. I'm doing it Saturday lunchtime. United are away to Spurs tomorrow afternoon. I'm going to have a stab at picking the team that Ole's going to select tomorrow. I'm going to make my case out for Dan James being in the starting lineup, and I'm going to go in depth into an explanation of our results really of recent months while Dan James has been playing and while he hasn't been playing. This game tomorrow is a must not lose game. Yet another one. We seem to have had quite a few of those. At the moment in the table, we've played 30 games. Spurs have played 30 games. I know we're aiming for second spot, but the only teams we really need to keep an eye on is the teams that are creeping up towards challenging for that top four. We need to be absolutely 100% nailed on being in the top four. If we get second, great, but the top four is vital. And Spurs are one of those teams who are just up there challenging for the top four, and they'll be looking at, apart from City, they'll be looking at all those teams and wondering what the chances are of them overtaking each and every one of them, really. And when you look at the situation between us and Spurs, we're on 60 points, they're only on 49 points. It sounds a massive gap. It is a massive gap as we speak. We've played 30 games each. We've got 8 games each left. If I was a Spurs fan, or even a Spurs player, if you like, I'd be looking at that table and thinking, if we can beat United tomorrow, we'll be 8 points behind them with 7 games to play. So 8 points behind with 7 games to play. You've got to have confidence in your own ability that you can go on a winning streak. I know it's not very likely, but this is how they've got to think. You know, they're hoping that they can go and win those last 8 games. And if they can do that, United would only need to drop 8 points for Spurs to be able to catch them. Doesn't sound very likely, but 8 points in 7 games is 2 defeats and 1 draw out of 7 games when we've still got to play the likes of Liverpool and Leicester. And it's not... They also look at it step by step. They won't just think they've got to drop 8 points over those 7 games. They'd love to be able to take it to the last day. So in a roundabout way, United have sort of only got to drop 5 points. So if United were to say lose to Liverpool and draw with Leicester while Spurs are winning all those games, it would go to the last day where Spurs would need to win and we would need to lose. We're away to Wolves. So it's like stepping stones. That's what they'll be looking at, creeping up bit by bit by bit. And if you offered it to them now, look, on the very last day of the season, if we lose and you win, you'll overtake us. They'd bite your hand off for that situation. I'm not saying it's doable, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility. What I would suggest is beyond the realms of possibility is if we draw tomorrow, we will still be 11 points in front of them with 7 games to play. That, I would suggest, is in a sporting situation is nigh on impossible. I would suggest for United to drop 11 points out of 7 games while Spurs are winning all their games. So, in a nutshell, if Spurs don't beat us tomorrow, it's one more team that's put behind us and are not going to catch us and are not going to challenge us for the top 4 spot. So it's a vital, must not lose game. Obviously, we beat them. They beat us heavily at Old Trafford 6-1. I've had a look at the results against the big sides. You know, against the big sides, we don't do too badly. You know, we've drawn with City and beaten City. We've drawn twice with Chelsea. We've drawn with Liverpool. I'll put Leicester in there. We've drawn with Leicester. People might say some of these need to be wins. I'm going to come to something else in a minute. It'd be great if some of them were wins. Obviously, we've had the heavy defeat against Spurs, and we've lost at Old Trafford 1-0 to Arsenal and drawn with Arsenal. So only 1 win against City, but 2 defeats, and then 6 draws. I've got a feeling there's a great chance of this being a draw again tomorrow. As I say, a draw will do us. But I look at it like this. You can expect to have difficult games against the big teams. You might not have a fantastic record. That record's not fantastic, but it's not absolutely disastrous either. If we could beat Spurs tomorrow, we'd have won as many as we've lost and we would have drawn all the rest. So it isn't an absolute disaster. What is a disaster is getting beat at home by Sheffield United, who are rock bottom of the league, drawing away with West Bromwich Albion, who are in the bottom 3. Those 2 results are disasters. I won't say it's a disaster. It's always a tricky fixture, Palace away, but we drew at Palace. We dropped 2 points there where you would expect to win. And although Everton is always a tricky fixture, or nearly always, you'd expect Everton are doing well this season. Obviously, it's a difficult fixture. But we played Everton at Old Trafford. We were 2-0 up and we were 3-2 up. We were 3-2 up deep into extra time and ended up drawing that game. So, look, you can't win every match and you will have the odd slip-up. If you were just to say that Palace away, fair enough, it's a tricky fixture, we slipped up there, that can happen. Okay, so let's say we don't turn that one round. You've got to beat Sheffield United at Old Trafford. You've got to beat West Brom. You've got to beat the three teams that are in the bottom three positions. You've got to beat all those teams twice in a season. So there's 5 points dropped that we should have won, and then 2 points to Everton after we were 2-0 up at half-time and also 3-2 up going into injury time. Those 7 points against Sheffield United, West Brom and Everton, a quick look at the table, would put us 7 points behind City with a game in hand if we'd taken those points. So the results against the big teams, as much as it would be great if we could turn some of them into wins, it's the silly points that we've dropped that has cost us out. We would definitely still consider ourselves in a title race. As we're speaking, by the way, City are losing 1-0 at Leeds at half-time. I was not interested in watching that game because I thought it'd be a cakewalk for City. But they're getting beat 1-0 at half-time. Of course, they might turn it round. They might well go on to win it. It's not uncommon for City to score 2, 3, even 4 goals in the second half of the game. But you would be hoping they might drop points there. Let's just say they equalise and they draw 1-1. You know, even today, we could be making, this weekend I should say, we could possibly be making 2 points up on City. City will probably go and win there, of course they will. But as we speak, before that game kicked off, City were 14 points in front of us and we've got a game in hand on them. So had we beaten Sheffield United, beaten West Brom, beaten Everton after being 2-0 up, we would be 7 points behind them with a game in hand. Win that game in hand, you're 4 points behind them with 7 to play. You would be, and like I say, City are actually in a losing situation. As I'm speaking against Leeds, we would still be in the title race if we'd taken the silly points, just 7 silly points there that we've dropped that are really silly points. Sheffield United, no disrespect to these teams, but we're Man United, they're in the relegation zone. West Brom are in the relegation zone. And then we shouldn't be losing to anyone at Old Trafford when we're 2-0 up at drawing with anybody at Old Trafford. I wouldn't expect City to come back and get a draw at Old Trafford if we're 2-0 up at half-time, let alone Everton. So those 7 stupid points, if we'd taken those 7 points, we would now be in a title race. The games against the big teams take care of themselves. So that you know, you're obviously going to do your best in those games, just like they are against you. So what will he pick tomorrow for this must not lose tie against Spurs? And it is exactly that. I must not lose tie. I'm going to make a case out for, before I say what I think the team should be, I'm going to make my case out for Dan James starting this game. And I'm fed up of seeing people talking about Dan James' lack of IQ, by the way. I'm going to bring something else up at the end when I'm finished with what I think the team will be, or what the team should be. Somebody's put a tweet out about Dan James' lack of intelligence, and he put this photograph on Twitter. I've been speaking to people on Twitter about it today, and there's people talking about the lack of intelligence in Dan James, and then something goes on Twitter like that other people are obviously going to see, and a lot of people will just go, oh wow, we should, yeah, like the guy says he should do this or he should do that. I'm gonna tear it to pieces what he said about that photograph. I'll do that at the end. But here's my argument for putting Dan James in the lineup tomorrow. This is our form. Form goes back about 10 games. I've taken it back 13 games because Dan James has been in and out of the team for 12 games. And he came into the team really because we had a disaster 13 games ago. So 13 games ago, we drew at West Brom, which is one of the games I've just spoken about where we dropped points where you wouldn't expect to drop points. We drew 1-1 at West Brom. That was a disaster. Dan James didn't play in that game. The very next game, he brought him into the team. We beat Real Sociedad 4-0 away. Then he kept him in the team. We beat Newcastle 3-1. Then he kept him in the team again. We drew at Old Trafford 0-0 with Real Sociedad. You might say that's that's not great. It isn't it isn't great. It's just not entertaining, and it's not fun for United supporters. At the end of the day, it's a professional game. It's a professional sport. They 4-0 up from the first leg. That result was a dead rubber. It really didn't matter. We've got a similar situation next week. We just won 2-0. We just won 2-0 in the Europa League quarter-final stage, haven't we, in the away leg. So now we're at home to Granada on Thursday. Don't be surprised one little bit, whoever plays, whether that's a 0-0 draw on Thursday. The last thing they want is them scoring and then, getting a bit of a pick-me-up, if you like. So he was kept in the team against Real Sociedad at Old Trafford. We drew 0-0. Perfectly adequate result. I'm sorry, but it is perfectly adequate. Then Chelsea away. One of the big games again, especially under the new manager Tuchel. At that point, they were unbeaten. We drew 0-0 at Chelsea. So we got beat. We drew at West Brom, and then we've had a 4-0, a 3-1, the 0-0 against Sociedad that didn't matter, and a 0-0 with Chelsea, which was a reasonable result. Then he was left out against Crystal Palace. Against Crystal Palace, we drew 0-0. So we've had 4 decent results sandwiched by 2 poor results that are not really acceptable. The 0-0 against Sociedad was acceptable. I'm sorry, but it is. We were 4-0 up. So the Palace away game, that's not really acceptable. We want to win there, don't we? As I've spoken about previously. The West Brom game, 1-1. We need to be winning that. Then he brought him back into the team. The next game was City. We beat City 2-0. The next game after that was AC Milan. He kept him into that. In that, we drew 1-1. Reasonable result. You want to be winning it, but I'm going to come back to that. But it's not a disaster. It's not as bad as the West Brom game or the Palace game, because you've still got your second leg to go for. But I'm going to come back to that game as well in a moment. Then he was still in the team against West Ham, and we won 1-0. Then we played Milan away, and he played, and we won 1-0. And then he left him out at Leicester in the Cup, and we got beat 3-1. Every time he's played, I want you to put yourself in the situation that you're the manager and you're not particularly keen on having Dan James in the team, and I'm the assistant manager, and I'm trying to convince you that he's got to play. Every time that he's played, the result's been fine or better than fine. It's been really good. And each time we've left him out, it hasn't gone very well at all. We got beat 3-1 at Leicester. Then after the break, at that stage, by the way, because that led into the international break. At that stage, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 games. The previous 11 games before the international break includes the draw at West Brom that he didn't play in, the draw at Palace that he didn't play in, the 3-1 defeat at Leicester that he didn't play in, and then it includes 8 games that he did play in, and they all went fine. Like I said, if you're a boss and I'm the assistant manager, I don't care what you think of him as a player. I don't care if you think he doesn't offer this and he doesn't offer that, or his crossing is not good enough. I'm just looking at what happens when he plays. I'm making my argument out. You need this player in the team. It seems to go better when he plays. I don't even need to say why. I don't need to. Maybe you can't put your finger on it, but it is a case. I'm going to come back to that AC Milan game still. I've not forgot. So then comes the break. I've tried to impress on you again that he has to play. We're playing Brighton at home. Surely we're going to beat Brighton at home. And you leave him out. We do win 2-1. But consider this. We're drawing 1-1 and you've got Dan James on the bench and you bring him on. He wasn't involved in the goal. It doesn't matter. Like I said about the games in general in themselves, I don't care if it's all sheer coincidence. I don't care if it's all sheer luck. So because that team changed, it doesn't have to be him that makes the goal. The actual shape of the game changes. When you've got a different player on, the shape of the game changes, the whole thing changes. So 1-1 against Brighton, you bring him on and we win 2-1. Then you keep him in the team for Granada away and the pattern continues. I know Granada are not all that great, but they're probably not much different than West Brom or Crystal Palace. And we've gone there and won 2-0. Granada, the commentator said that their whole squad had cost them €8 million or something, which is ridiculous. But they are, compared to us, it's ridiculous. They are 9th in La Liga. I don't think West Brom or Crystal Palace would be much higher than 9th if they were in La Liga. I really don't. So don't just say, oh, it was only Granada, of course, they're going to win that. But at the same time, going back through the games that he's played, and he's also played against AC Milan twice. He's played against Man City, where we won. He's played against Chelsea, where we drew. So he's played in good games as well. So the record of the last 13 games there is astonishingly in favour of needing this player in the team no matter what the reason is. I said I'd go back to the AC Milan game at Old Trafford because I've just pointed out that we were drawing 1-1 with Brighton when Dan came on and we won 2-1. Against AC Milan at Old Trafford, we were actually winning 1-0 and he took him off. So while he was on the pitch, we won 1-0. It's while he was off the pitch, we got beat 1-0, and obviously that adds up to a 1-1 draw. The weight of evidence is absolutely astonishing. I mean, we're not talking 3, 4, 5 games here. 13 games is a good chunk of a season. The weight of evidence that we need this player in the lineup is astonishing. It really is. And he needs to play. Now then, what will the team be? I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to finish with this, but what will the team be tomorrow? I think Henderson's going to come back in. It looks pretty much to me now as though De Gea's, might be wrong, De Gea might go on a run of games now. I might be wrong. He did play well the other night. But I'm going to hazard a guess that he's going to be the Europa League keeper from now on and that Henderson's going to be the league keeper. So I fancy Henderson will come in. Back four picks itself. Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Maguire and Shaw. Pretty sure he'll go to McTominay and Fred for this game. For the Brighton game, he went Pogba and Fred. Then for the Granada game, he went McTominay and Pogba. And now for the difficult game, I think with the more difficult game, Spurs away, I think he'll go back to McTominay and Fred. I'll be amazed if he doesn't. So I think McTominay and Fred will play. Bruno, obviously, the team sheet comes with his name printed on it. So he'll be at number 10. So then the 3 forwards or the 2 wide men and the striker, however you want to put it. This is where the problems start. This is a major problem for Ole. For me, and I've just explained why, go back to that scenario. You're the assistant manager, sort of the manager and the assistant manager. You need this player in your team. In our last 13 games, he's played, every time he's on the pitch at like 11 games, some of those are subs. It's gone well while he's on. It doesn't go well while he's not on. And each game that he's played fully, it's gone well, or at least decent to well. Every game that he hasn't played, it hasn't gone well. You need him in the team, boss. You need him in the team. Now then, will he be in the team? I don't think he will. On the left, let's start on the left, because obviously that's a position that Pogba can play, and Pogba's fit and he's been playing quite a lot, and I don't think he's going to want to go without his favoured central pairing who cover the back four better, or he thinks they cover the back four better, McTominay and Fred. Bruno at number 10. So will Pogba be dropped? I don't think Pogba will be dropped. I'll be surprised if he gets dropped. But if he plays, it means he's going to play. Surely, he has played wide on the right once, but I think he'll play. It comes to the same thing anyway. If he plays wide on the right, it's in order to keep Rashford on the left. But if he does play wide on the left, I don't see him dropping Rashford. I really don't. I think Rashford will get switched to the right if Pogba plays on the left. And then if he plays Pogba and Rashford on whichever flanks they play on, if he plays Rashford and Pogba on the flanks, there's no room for Dan James. And if there's no room for Dan James, there's also no room for Greenwood as a flank player either. There's no room for Greenwood because Greenwood plays most of the time on the flank, although with Marshall being missing, he played as a striker the other night. So I don't think Dan James will play. I think we'll see Rashford playing on the right, and I think we'll see Pogba playing on the left. And I think we'll see Cavani getting a game at number 9, and because he didn't get a game, he came on off the bench, didn't he, the other night? So I think Cavani will get a start at number 9. So that's what I fancy it'll be. I think Greenwood will find himself on the bench. I think James will find himself on the bench. And results-wise, as I said, I think it's ridiculous not to play Dan James. That's how strongly I feel about it. just going off the results, you know, despite what I see on the football field, just going off the results when he plays compared to when he doesn't play. But I think it'll be Henderson in goal, Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Maguire and Shaw, McTominay and Fred, Bruno. I think it'll be Rashford, Cavani and Pogba. Now then, on the Dan James thing, someone's put something on Twitter, a photograph. I hope that's going to be pretty clear. I'm going to try and show you what this guy has said on Twitter, and a few people have liked it and a few people have commented on it. And with this photograph, he's put a quick thread, so there's obviously other things as well, a quick thread that highlights the low IQ of Dan James. The first mistake he made here is not to stay wide and not to stay wide to create an overlap. If he had done this, then Green would have the option of playing him in, and the run of Dan James would also have created more space for the shot. I've never seen such a load of codswallop in all my life. I hope that's close enough, and I hope you can see it clearly enough. This highlights the low IQ of Dan James. I'm going to pick apart everything that he said as he goes through. The first mistake he makes here is not to stay wide. So the very first 3 words, the first mistake, or the first 5 words, the first mistake he makes. To say from a still photograph that this is the not staying wide because he's well in field there, Dan James. From a still, and I use still photographs myself quite often. From a still photograph, even then you could make mistakes. But from a still photograph, you can say what should happen next. Like I say, you'll still get the odd thing wrong, but it is possible to say from a still photograph what should happen next. It's impossible to say from a still photograph what should have happened before. It's absolutely, completely impossible. The first mistake he made here is not to stay wide. So he's suggesting what he should have already done. How do we know where Dan James was when Bruno received the ball? How do we know that? This player's developed from somewhere. It's in the past. You know, Dan James might have just chased somebody from the left wing into the centre circle. Dan James might have just won the ball in the centre circle and then passed it and then moved. You just don't know what has happened previously. So it's completely ridiculous. The first mistake he made here is not to stay wide. So that is a joke in itself. You can't tell why he's in that position. You don't know why he's there. You don't know where he was 4 or 5 or 6 seconds ago. Now then, if we assume that Bruno's, maybe that's his second, maybe he's taken 1 touch to get it under control or take it out of his feet. He might have taken 2 or 3 touches. We just, like I say, we just don't know. But if we hazard a guess that he's just taken 1 touch and now he's about to release the pass, then where could Dan James possibly have been if Bruno's only taken 1? He could only have been 3, 4 or 5 yards away from where he is now. It's not like he could have been on the wing. It's not like he could have been on the wing when Bruno received the ball and raced in 30 yards, is it, to be in this position after Bruno? So he hasn't made a mistake anyway. Even if he has, you know, he can't have been out on the wing when Bruno received the ball. So the very first sentence is ridiculous. It's a joke, right? So, and then the next part of the first sentence, I've only covered half a sentence here. The second part of the first sentence, it's a mistake not to stay wide to create an overlap. Right, do you understand what an overlap is? What an overlap is when an attacking player has got the ball at his feet, or any player has got the ball at his feet, and he's got an opponent facing him up and is considering taking that opponent on. Usually happens out, it can happen in the middle of the field, usually happens out on the wing. You usually talk about fullbacks overlapping the wingers. That's what you normally talk about when you talk about, it can be any player, but normally it's a fullback. That's where it first, the phrase first came about, of an overlapping fullback. 50, 60, 80 years ago, fullbacks used to stay back. When they used to start coming forward, they called it an overlapping fullback. So the idea of an overlapping fullback, or any overlapping player, is if you've got the ball at your feet and there's a man in front of you that you think considering taking that man on, and then somebody runs past you, one of your teammates runs past you and past that player, then you knock the ball past that player for your teammate to run onto. So it's taken two of you to defeat one man, to take one man out of the game. If you do an overlap correctly and the timing of the pass is correct, the man who you are facing has got no chance. He's got no chance. It's taken two of you to beat him. That is what an overlap is. You run past your man, he lays it in front of you. The man who's in front has then got a turn, or he's probably already on the half turn, but he's also facing you up, so he's not running. The man who's doing the overlap is already running. He's already at full speed. It's like an Olympic sprinter in a relay race. You've got to start. You get your start going so that you're running already. When you're the second receiver or the third receiver, you're already running. You're at full pelt. So when you're at full pelt doing your overlap and there's a man there standing facing somebody, he's got to turn and he's got to get going. He's got no chance of catching you. That's the idea of an overlap. That's what an overlap is. So, getting back to what he said, not to stay wide and create an overlap. He is exactly creating an overlap. He's about 3 yards to the right-hand side of Greenwood. But Greenwood's not got the ball. I mean, there's another thing. It's a joke in so many ways. Look at the space for Greenwood to run into. If Bruno gets that ball in front of Greenwood there, is he going to think about passing it anyway? He's clean through on goal. I mean, he might do to try and take the keeper out of the game. But that can still happen. It can still happen. So Greenwood's going to try and score, really, if the ball's in front of him. But if he wants to use Dan James as an overlap, and this comment says to stay wide to create an overlap, he is creating an overlap. He's creating a perfect overlap. He's 3 yards away from Greenwood. If Greenwood had the ball and he ran past him, I mean, there's nobody in front for him to even take on, so he don't need to overlap. But if he runs past Greenwood, he's overlapping him, and he's 3 yards away from Greenwood. It's perfect. So when you say stay wide to create an overlap, you don't have to do that. You can create an overlap by running past your man, and you can be so close to him, it's unbelievable. It's his pass that matters, that has to go past the man in front. You could actually tag that man. You could actually touch your teammate, slap hands if you want as you go past him. It's the speed of running past him that creates the overlap, not the width. It's getting past him and getting onto the ball and gets played past the man. So you don't need lots of width to create an overlap. He's in a perfect position to create an overlap. If he had done this, Greenwood would have the option of playing him in. Well, he has still got the option of playing him in. Perfect option to play him in. Of playing him in. And the run of Dan James would have created more space for the shot. No, it wouldn't. There doesn't appear to be any defenders on this side of the field. The defenders are on this side of the field. For Dan James to create space for Mason Greenwood, Dan James would need to be over here to attract one of these players away. So if Dan James goes wide, these players are still going to come across here to try and block Mason Greenwood's shot. So there's no chance whatsoever of Dan James making it. This player's not going to catch up. If this ball's well weighted, it's in front of Greenwood. Forget this man. He's not catching up before the shot goes in. Dan James is creating an overlap, and he cannot affect these players who are on the other side of Mason Greenwood. He cannot do anything different, and you don't know where he was before. The irony of ironies, because this actual tweet shows such a lack of IQ, and yet it's actually criticising Dan James' lack of IQ. It's an irony of ironies. Everything that's written about it is completely wrong. It's a load of rubbish, and there'll be people looking at it and thinking, "Oh, why? Yeah, it's beyond me. It's absolutely beyond me." Right, so that's that. So it's Spurs away tomorrow afternoon. I think I'm just in time to watch the last 10 or 15 minutes of the City game at Leeds. I wasn't going to watch it at all. Like I say, I thought it was going to be a walkover, but I hope they're not leading. Maybe they've equalised by now, but it might be an interesting last 10 or 15 minutes. I'll be back live definitely tomorrow. my assistant's away. We've been having a few technical issues on the live show, so my fresh assistant is coming round to have a little practice today, and we might just be going live for half an hour Saturday afternoon stroke Saturday evening, but definitely going to try and go live again tomorrow an hour and 15 minutes before the game. Really looking forward to it. I've not yet managed to watch the game in its entirety, the Granada game. I know it's a little bit late now, but I will do it, and I will do a rating show still from the Granada game. And at some stage, I'll get that up before we play Spurs. Really looking forward to this game at Spurs. I hope Dan James plays, but I've got a sneaky feeling it's going to be Rashford, Cavani and Pogba as a front three. I hope you've enjoyed that show. If you've enjoyed that show, please tell all your friends. Please subscribe. If you didn't enjoy it, don't tell anybody. Keep stum.